I spent 18 years raising her son, then found out the real father was her boss. I didn't yell. I just left and sent the truth to HR. Her boss lost his job. She lost everything. Hey there. We're working hard to hit our first 1,000 subscribers. If you love true, emotional stories, hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know. Now let's get into the story. I spent 18 years raising a child who wasn't mine, and I had no clue. Not a hint. Not a whisper. Not even a gut feeling. Jake was my son, or so I thought. We built Lego castles together, watched superhero movies until midnight, and he'd fall asleep on my chest every single Christmas Eve. I taught him how to ride a bike, helped him ace his first science fair, and sat front row at every parent-teacher conference. I wasn't just involved. I was all in. My wife, Emily, and I met in college. She was ambitious, sharp, always chasing promotions. I was the steady one. The glue, she called me. We married at 24, had Jake a year later. Or, so the timeline said. What unraveled everything wasn't a screaming match or some suspicious text. It was a DNA test. Yeah, one of those stupid, casual kits you buy online. Jake had to do a family heritage project for school. He joked that we should both send in samples and compare. I laughed, told him, sure, might find out we're 2% Viking or something. The results came in a few weeks later. He was excited. Dad, look, it says I've got Irish and Norwegian roots. And then he frowned. Wait, you didn't get any Irish, right? I hadn't. I double-checked. Nope, none. I chalked it up to a glitch at first. Then I opened the deeper breakdown. Matches, markers, family lines. That's when I saw it. His top paternal match was a man named David Kellerman. 99.9% match. Age 58. Location, Boston. Occupation, executive director at the same company where Emily worked. Her boss. And I swear to you, I didn't even react. Not at first. I just sat there, staring at the screen, while my son happily made a presentation slide titled, Where My Family Comes From. I couldn't breathe. Update 1. That night, I just told Jake I was tired and went to bed early. I lay there for hours, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her brushing her teeth just a few feet away, like everything wasn't falling apart. I couldn't even look at her. The next day, while she was at work, I started digging. Not out of revenge. Not yet. I needed to understand. First, I looked up David Kellerman, the man Jake's DNA matched. He was higher up than I realized, senior VP. Oversaw the entire East Coast division. His LinkedIn had been updated 2 weeks ago. Still smiling. Still wearing that dumb maroon tie I'd seen once before in a company Christmas photo Emily had shown me years ago. Then I went back through our records, emails, old calendars, trip receipts. Back in 2005, when she was working overtime and grinding for that raise, she was in New York twice a month for a whole year. Guess who was running the New York branch at that time? Yeah, him. I didn't jump to conclusions yet. I'm a facts guy. Always have been. So I checked her email history. I knew her old passwords. She never changed them. I found archived messages, travel itineraries, and one email she forgot to delete from her personal inbox. You looked incredible last night. Can't stop thinking about your laugh. Sorry I couldn't stay longer. Same time next month. DK. It was dated 6 weeks before Jake was born. I sat there with my hands on my lap, staring at the screen. I didn't shake. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just exhaled and said to myself, okay, that's what it is. I copied everything. Screenshots, saved emails, exported Slack logs from her work laptop. She left it open constantly, even voicemail transcriptions. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew this. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of a confrontation. Not yet. Update 2. The hardest part wasn't what I'd discovered. It was pretending everything was normal. For 2 full weeks, I played the part of the doting husband. Kissed her cheek when she came home. Asked about her day. Ate dinner at the table like my life hadn't been quietly detonated. She was glowing, telling me about quarterly restructuring, how David was under pressure from the board, how she might be up for something big soon. It was surreal. Every time she said his name, I wanted to laugh or throw up. Instead, I just nodded and sipped my drink. It felt like I was in a movie, one where the main character had already died, but no one told him yet. But while she was at work, I was busy. I had a plan now. The company she worked for, a pretty major player in finance and logistics, had a strict corporate ethics policy. Everything from workplace affairs to supervisor-subordinate relationships was covered in their handbook. I checked their HR policy page online and confirmed any undisclosed relationship with a superior, especially resulting in personal or financial gain, was grounds for termination. So I went full analyst mode. Compiled the digital trail. Email chains with flirty sign-offs. A private, shared Google Calendar with recurring monthly meetings blocked off. She had even booked 2 hotel stays using our joint credit card, both during leadership conferences where she insisted she had to room with the girls to cut costs. Yeah, room with the girls. Right. Then there were the Slack messages. Casual at first. Then it got intimate. Too intimate. One message from him, dated a few months ago, said, "You ever think about telling him the truth? Or is it easier to just let him keep thinking he's the hero?" She responded with a thumbs up emoji. Just a thumbs up. That was the moment I decided I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to end this. Quietly. Professionally. Irreversibly. I created a separate email account under a burner identity. ethics_report_consultant@protonmail.com. I attached the documents. All of them. Zip file labeled. Undisclosed relationship. Kellerman / her full name. Potential ethics violation. I even wrote a short message. This may be relevant to your company's conflict of interest policy. Evidence enclosed. Confirmed affair timeline overlaps with promotions, bonuses, and departmental transfers. Not seeking compensation. Just closure. I sent it to 3 people. The company's head of HR, their legal compliance officer, and the CEO's assistant, whose email I found buried on an old press release. Then I logged out, cleared my history, and went for a walk. That night, I watched her pour wine and giggle on the phone in the kitchen. She whispered something and said "David" in a soft, familiar way. I knew it wasn't work-related. I also knew what was coming. The next morning, I left the house before she woke up. I didn't leave a note. No fight. No dramatic scene. I just took a duffel bag, my passport, and the hard drive with copies of everything. Booked a week at a quiet Airbnb upstate. Paid in cash. At 3:12 p.m. that same day, I got a single notification on the burner email. "Thank you for the submission. Our legal department will investigate this matter fully. Please do not respond to this email." That's all it said. But I smiled for the first time in weeks. At 5:47 p.m., she called me. 7 times. I didn't answer. At 6:11, I got a text. "Where are you? Jake's worried. You're not picking up." I wrote back. "I'll explain everything soon. But not to you." She didn't reply. But 5 minutes later, Jake called me from his room. Voice shaking. I told him gently, "Nothing bad is happening to you. But I need some space. I'll come see you tomorrow." He didn't cry. He just said, "Okay, I trust you, Dad." That word hit me harder than any truth ever could. Update 3. The call came 2 days later. Emily's voice was shaking. Not angry, panicked. "He got fired. David's gone. They said there was an investigation, and now he's out. I don't know what the hell is going on, but I need to talk to you. Please, please answer." I didn't. She didn't know I was the one who lit the match and walked away without looking back. All I replied was, "You'll understand soon. Jake first." Because he deserved the truth more than she deserved an explanation. I picked him up after school. He didn't ask questions. He just looked tired. We drove for a while. No music, just silence. Parked at the old fishing spot we used to visit when he was little. Then I told him, carefully, gently. Every word hurt to say. I explained the DNA test, the results, the name that came up. I showed him the paperwork, the screenshots, the timeline. At first, he didn't believe me. He said I was confused or reading it wrong. Then he just sat there, staring out at the lake, trying to breathe through it. "So he's my real dad? That guy from Mom's office?" I nodded. And then I told him something I'd rehearsed 100 times. "I don't care what that test says. I changed your diapers. I taught you how to drive. I sat through 3 hours of Cats because your middle school crush was in it. That doesn't change." He looked at me for a long time, then said, "Yeah, you're still my dad." She's the liar. Later that night, Emily showed up at the Airbnb. I didn't let her in. She was sobbing through the door, pleading, then threatening. "You had no right to tell him that. You ruined everything." I said nothing. Just let her burn herself out. She screamed that Jake wasn't answering her texts, that HR had suspended her too, that her entire career was on hold, that her boss's wife found out and had filed for divorce. I told her calmly, "You lied to 2 families for 18 years. It was only a matter of time." She called me cold, heartless, said I was destroying Jake. I told her, "I'm not the one who used my son as a shield to cover my affair. That's on you." Jake refused to come home with her that weekend. He said he wanted to stay with me for a while. We played video games, ordered pizza, watched old movies. For the first time in months, he laughed again. That Sunday, Emily sent a final text. "If you think I'm going to let you take my son away from me, you're insane. We'll see what the court says." That's when I knew she'd flipped the switch. This wasn't about guilt anymore. It was about control. But she forgot something important. I wasn't just a dad. I was a prepared one. And now, I had everything documented. Update 4. You know that feeling when you realize the story you were living in was never real? That's what this update is. Because once I lawyered up, everything started falling into place. And none of it made the last 18 years feel real anymore. My attorney was sharp, calm, the kind of guy who doesn't flinch when you tell him. My wife lied about who fathered our child for nearly 2 decades. He reviewed the DNA results, my financial contributions, the school records, the medical history, everything that proved I was Jake's father in practice, even if I wasn't in biology. We've got a rock-solid claim for custodial rights, he said. But you should be prepared for her to go nuclear. Affairs don't end quietly when the other party loses everything. And he was right, because what I found next made everything worse. Digging deeper into Emily's work history and her relationship with David, I discovered something that hadn't even occurred to me. This wasn't a one-night stand. It wasn't even a slip-up during a rough patch in our marriage. They had been involved for the first 4 years of our relationship, from her second year in the company to just after Jake was born. How do I know? Because she kept a journal. Yes, a physical, paper-bound journal. She used to write when she was anxious. I found it buried in a storage bin labeled college stuff when I was retrieving some old tax forms. Page after page, doodles, random quotes, and then entries like, "He's talking about leaving his wife again. I know it's probably a lie, but I can't help it. Tried to tell my husband the truth this morning. Couldn't do it. He looked so happy. It's easier this way. He'll be a better dad than David ever could." That last line punched me in the ribs. So she knew. She knew I wasn't the father, and she let me raise Jake anyway. She told herself I'd be better at it. Like I was a walking, breathing babysitting service for her mistake. And the sickest part? I agreed. I was better at it. But that didn't make it right. Meanwhile, Jake started therapy. Voluntarily. He told me one night, quietly, like it was a secret, "I want to talk to someone about it, but not her." We found a specialist who deals with identity crises and family betrayal. He's making progress. Slowly. But I could see it in his eyes. That question every kid asks when something breaks. Was any of it real? And Emily? She tried to spin the narrative. Told her family I overreacted, that Jake was being poisoned against her, that it was a harmless fling before our marriage really started. I emailed them a single PDF. Just one. Screenshots. Timeline. DNA results. Journal excerpts. Her sister hasn't spoken to her since. Her mother emailed me. "I had no idea. I'm so sorry you went through this. You're still Jake's father. Always will be." I didn't reply, but I read that line more than once. Update 5. By this point, I wasn't angry. Not anymore. I was just focused. I had one goal: protect Jake. Not from just her lies, but from the wreckage she was dragging behind her like a house on fire. Because while she was spiraling, I was tightening every bolt around my legal position. My lawyer filed a petition for legal parental recognition, which meant I could retain full paternal rights despite the DNA. Since I'd raised him without question, courts typically ruled in favor of the psychological parent, especially when the biological father was a married ex-boss facing corporate disgrace. Emily, she did what panicked people do when they realize their web is collapsing. She retaliated. She filed a motion to block me from visitation, claimed I was emotionally manipulative and weaponizing Jake's emotions. She told the court I had abandoned the home and that she was the only real parent. That backfired. Badly. See, she forgot something. I had receipts. Receipts for every medical appointment I took Jake to. School trips I chaperoned. Signed report cards. Father's Day cards with his handwriting. A digital photo folder labeled Dad and Jake every year. 2007 to 2024. In response to her filing, my lawyer submitted all of it. We also submitted the paternity test, the affair timeline, the HR emails showing David's termination, and, most damning of all, her own journal entries admitting she kept the truth from me for convenience. The judge reviewed both motions and requested a hearing. Jake, now 17, asked if he could speak directly to the court. I told him it was his decision. He said, "I want them to hear it from me. I want her to hear it, too." At the hearing, he sat in front of the judge and said, without hesitation, "He raised me. He's my dad. She lied to both of us. I don't care about DNA. I care about who showed up." Emily started crying halfway through his statement. But Jake didn't flinch, didn't even look at her. The judge ruled on the spot. Visitation will remain intact. And based on the psychological harm inflicted by the prolonged deception, the court is considering full custody transition to the petitioner. That was me. Outside the courthouse, Emily followed me to the car. "You're trying to destroy me. You want to make me suffer." I looked at her and said, "No, you did that yourself. I'm just making sure our son doesn't drown with you." 3 days later, she got the final call from her company. Terminated. Officially. Violation of ethics. Reputational damage. Breach of conduct. She lost her title, her pension track, her connections. Everything she spent 2 decades building, gone in a 3-paragraph email. A former colleague reached out to me, anonymously. They said word had spread fast. She was known as the one who got the boss fired. Her name was already toxic in her industry. She might land something eventually, they said, but it'll be a long fall first. Meanwhile, Jake and I, we started over. New apartment, new rhythm, weekend therapy, late night snacks, and long conversations. He told me recently, "You know, I don't even think of him as my real dad. You've always been it." I didn't say anything. I just nodded. Because sometimes, the deepest revenge isn't fire and fury. It's walking away whole, while the one who tried to break you is left standing in the ruins of their own decisions. Update 6. By the time we reached the final custody hearing, Emily had lost most of her fight. The light in her eyes was different. Dull, but not remorseful. Just bitter. Like someone who couldn't believe her own game had finally turned on her. She showed up alone. No lawyer this time. Her funds were low. Most of her accounts had been drained fighting the uphill legal war she wasn't prepared for. Me? I walked in with a folder full of documentation, a calm expression, and Jake by my side. The judge reviewed the final recommendations from both child services and the appointed therapist. Jake had told them everything. How he'd found out the truth. How his mother tried to spin it. And how he felt manipulated, not just as a son, but as a pawn in her performance. The judge turned to Jake. "You're almost an adult, young man. You'll be legally independent soon. But for the record, what do you want?" Jake didn't look at her. Not once. He looked straight at the judge and said, "I want to stay with the parent who didn't lie. The one who never tried to sell me a story to cover their own mess. I want to live with the man who chose me every single day, even when he didn't have to." That courtroom? Silent. Emily didn't cry. She just slumped into her chair like the sentence had already been passed. And it had. The judge granted me full residential custody. Visitation for Emily? Supervised, and only with Jake's consent, which he chose not to give. After the ruling, Emily tried one last thing. She waited for us in the parking lot. Jake saw her first and said, "I got this." I stayed back. She walked up, arms out like this with some teary reunion. "Baby, I know I messed up, but you don't have to cut me out completely. You'll understand one day. I was scared. I made a mistake." Jake looked her dead in the eye and said, "No, a mistake is dropping your phone in the toilet. A mistake is forgetting my birthday. You lied to me about who I am. For 18 years. And the only reason you're sorry is because you got caught." Then he got in the car. Didn't say another word. And me? I drove away. Not in victory. Not in anger. Just in peace. Because for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't someone's fallback plan. I wasn't cleaning up someone else's mess. I was just a father. A good one. And that was enough. Final update. It's been just over a year. Jake turns 18 next month. He already got early acceptance into a state university, wants to study psychology. I didn't push him into it. He chose that on his own. Said he wanted to understand why people hide behind lies and still expect to be loved. I didn't know whether to smile or cry when he told me that. So I did both. Quietly. We moved to a different part of town. Smaller apartment, but brighter. Lighter. Not just in windows, but in energy. There are no ghosts in this place. No forced smiles. No tension humming under dinner table conversations. Just us. And freedom. Emily tried to reach out once since the court decision. She sent a handwritten letter to the new address. Weirdly formal. Almost like she thought if she used enough sincerelys and regrets, we'd forget everything. I didn't reply. Jake read it, then tossed it in the trash without a word. That chapter? It's closed. As for David Kellerman, he lost more than his job. His wife filed for divorce 6 days after the HR scandal broke. No kids. No support system. He vanished from social media, from LinkedIn, from the industry. A few mutual acquaintances told me he's now consulting part-time, trying to rebuild his reputation from scratch. Let him. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted the truth. And I got it. I still keep a copy of Jake's childhood drawings in a file cabinet. Crayon stick figures of me and Dad standing next to a wonky house with a crooked son. One day, when he's older, I'll give them to him. Remind him that what matters isn't whose blood runs through your veins. It's who stays. These days, we cook together more. He's awful at chopping onions, but insists on doing it anyway. We take weekend hikes. Talk about life. Healing. Future. No courts. No lies. Just father and son. Exactly the way it always should have been. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.